Okay, so here I'm going to be demonstrating how to make the perfect flaky pie crust. I've got my flour, a little bit of salt, and my shortening all in the bowl, and the next step is to use a pastry blender to cut in the shortening. Okay, so now I've got everything blended together, and you'll see that the mixture looks kind of like coarse crumbs, and that's exactly how you want it to look. So the next thing we need to do is to add the water. For this recipe, we use 6 to 7 tablespoons of cold water. I always like to add some ice to my water. That keeps the shortening from getting too warm when you're stirring it. Now the secret to the perfect pie crust is not to overmix it. So I will show you how to add the water, a small amount at a time, so that you're not getting too much or too little water over the mixture. So here's a little bit of the flour that I've kind of pushed aside. What I'm going to do is fill a tablespoon with the ice water, and then kind of sprinkle this over this little area. Then you quickly take your fork and kind of toss it together. Now it's going to be a little bit crumbly, but you'll see that there are some parts of it that are starting to clump together. You take those pieces that are kind of clumped and you press them against the side of the bowl. Then you add a little bit more of the flour mixture, and you repeat the same step again. Make sure you don't get any ice in your tablespoon. Kind of sprinkle it over so that it's spread. Take your fork, stir it around. You want to avoid having overly saturated sections of dough. If you have a couple spots where it's gooey, that's not going to be a big problem. But you just don't want too much of that. Press all of this dough over to the side. Again. Then start with another section. Each piece you're going to want to press into a ball. The next step in making your pie crust is to roll it out. And that can be pretty tricky too, but we'll get it. Okay, so now it's time to roll out the dough. What I like to use is 2 sheets of waxed paper, and I take my ball of dough, flatten it out slightly, and then set it down on one of the sheets. With wax paper, cover it up. You want to roll, I like a nice heavy marble rolling pin because it adds a little bit of weight and you don't have to push quite as hard. But you want to just roll gently back and forth, side to side, to make your pie crust nice and round. Now, if you were to be looking closely, I'm not sure if you can see that on the camera, but you'll notice that the crust has kind of a swirly, marbly kind of pattern. And when you see that, you can, that's a sign that you have done a good job of not over mixing your dough, and you have your shortening and everything all kind of swirling in there, and your crust will turn out nice and flaky and delicious. And this takes a bit of patience. Every now and then I like to flip it over, because sometimes the wax paper kind of gets folded into the dough on the back side, and if that happens, you just kind of pull it apart and then just start rolling again. You're going to want to roll your dough until it is about to the edges and a little bit past the edges of the wax paper. Okay, so now I am ready to remove the crust from the paper and put it in the pan. So you want to gently pull the plastic wrap off. What I like to do is kind of fold it over my arm. It's a little bit tricky, but you'll get the hang of it. And just kind of pull it up and away from the crust. It'll stick a little bit, but once you get it going, it should come off fairly easily. Just be slow and gentle. Oh, my oven is ready. Then you just carefully lay it down into the pie pan. You got to be a little more careful with the second piece, because it's got to be large enough to go over all of the filling. So now it's ready to be trimmed, and then I will put the filling in and roll out the second piece of dough. Here we go with the second layer. Pie crust is all rolled out, and I'm going to try to center it on the top of the pie, leaving plenty of room to tuck it in once it's trimmed. And there you can see that it fits beautifully. Trim the excess off the edges, just about 1/2 inch off of the edge of your dish. So now we need to make holes for steam. You can make this as decorative as you want. Use a sharp knife and just poke a few. You can do this random, you can do it in a pattern, an initial, whatever you want. I like to cut leaf shapes out to decorate my pie crust. So you just cut a basic little leaf, draw the veins, then you just pick it up, set it here, and then you do 4 more just like that. 3 more. Now the leaves are on and the edge is fluted, and I'm just going to brush it with a little egg and water mixture. This helps it look nice and glossy and golden. And here we have a lovely, freshly baked apple pie with a beautiful golden sugary crust. I am sure that it will be as delicious as it is lovely.